God crazy.
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
Brenton is going to bring us home. What does Brenton have to say, Joss?
Brenton wrote in and said, "Aloha, disgruntled chickens. Last week there was a question involving game length, in particular with priests, and whether long games are good or bad. While I agree that long games aren't inherently bad, it is my preference that the games are shorter. One of the reasons I was attracted to Hearthstone originally was because historically I could get a game in around 7 to 10 minutes with the occasional 15-minute game. Now I feel like my average games are 15 or more minutes with the occasional 25 to 30-minute game. This preference of mine is, of course, subjective. This is one of the reasons that I put this email in here, because I was like, dude, I love that you are realizing that this is your personal experience and preferences, as opposed to 25-minute games are bad.
Although I agree with that sentiment.
Right. He goes on to say, I feel like lifesteal is an issue that the game faces today, one of the contributors that makes games much longer. It's a cool mechanic in and of itself, but it feels way too prevalent and too powerful in a lot of situations. I wish hero life totals only went down, with the exception of occasional priest or paladin healing. Again, this is just my personal preference. If you had to choose one mechanic from Hearthstone to remove from the game to, in your opinion, make the game better, what would it be and why? And if you had to choose one mechanic from Hearthstone to add to the game to make the game better, what would it be and why? Or sorry, one mechanic just to add to the game, not from Hearthstone, because obviously if it's in Hearthstone, it's already in the game. But what do you think is missing? So what would you take away and what would you add, Garrett?
Geez. What would I take away? Armor generation.
Interesting. Okay.
Are you surprised? I hate warrior. I hate them with a passion. and if they ever added bans to this game, I would never uncheck warrior.
All right. I don't know why. Armor generation is not what I thought that you were going to maybe say.
It's not currently the sexy target of hate in Hearthstone, but historically, I think warriors straight up get to cheat. I think it's bullshit that we can't heal above 30.
So, I mean, would that be that you want to get rid of armor generation, or do you want to potentially change the way that healing works?
Well, as someone who doesn't really like games that go on for longer than 20 minutes, let's get rid of armor generation.
You want to get rid of armor. Okay, fair enough.
And I don't really still think it's bullshit that we can't heal above 30, but when Hearthstone launched and I looked at warrior and I'm like, they just get to cheat. They just get to cheat.
That's how I felt about druids. The very first game of Hearthstone that I played was against a druid. I knew nothing about anything. And when they got to keep their armor at the end of the turn, I was like, that's some BS. What is going on here?
Yeah.
I have 30 and will always have 30 unless I have less, and you just get to have more.
I find
busted stupid druids.
I find Brenton's hang up on lifesteal really interesting, because I don't think of lifesteal as I don't think lifesteal is not in a lot of popular decks. It's a major offender in Demon Hunter for sure, but I think what hunter decks are running lifesteal? What is Galakron's Secret Rogue? No, they're not running lifesteal. Murloc Paladin's not running lifesteal.
There is one Murloc and Paladin that has lifesteal, isn't there?
Okay. They're not running impactful lifesteal. Right,
yeah. And I think obviously Life Drinker would have been last year's big offended.
I'm looking at the list right now. There's not any lifesteal in this Murloc list.
And Priest obviously has lifesteal, but I feel like it belongs in Priest. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm okay with Priest healing. But I can also completely understand even it's not even necessarily lifesteal, just healing in general. Priest has so much of now. They have the water dude, the 5 mana 5/5 heal for 5 guy. And then they have I guess everybody has the is it Kartut Defender, the reborn guy, the 3/4 that heals your face.
Yeah.
Everybody has that. That's not lifesteal, but it's definitely an impactful heal.
A healing thing for sure. Yeah, games are certainly going longer, but I think it's just more control style decks are very popular at the moment. I mean, Galakrond Secret Rogue, I wouldn't necessarily call it a control deck, but it absolutely can, and the games tend to go very long. The same is true with anytime Priest is popular, games are going to go long because they're not blowing you out. Their goal isn't to burn you down. Although on the flip side, it's literally
to just fatigue you and make you quit because you're bored.
On the flip side, we are seeing some of the most aggressive warrior decks that we've seen in a very long time, and control warrior is very unpopular. So that's actually helping game time overall. It's just, it's interesting. I blame Rogue. I blame Rogue and Priest right now. I think that's why games are going long. And to a certain degree, Demon Hunter can go long. They can go the distance, and I think for them, I think it is because of the lifesteal. They do have access to a surprising amount of it for a class that is definitely flirts with what Rogue already does, but Rogue doesn't get to heal.
Yeah.
But
a lot of that.
Yeah.
For me, I think, and I'm so surprised that this wasn't kind of your go-to thing too, and it's kind of a combination of the two. I'd either want something added or something kind of tweaked to add this, but the way that like resurrecting works in Hearthstone right now has never kind of made logical sense to me. So when I think of something dying, I think of it then like leaving a corpse, and maybe you can see where I'm going with this thing that I want added.
You want a graveyard?
I want a proper graveyard because so you have a minion that dies and it leaves a corpse behind, and then you resurrect it. What I don't understand is why if one of them has died, you can resurrect 3 of the same thing. Like, to me, it should be minion A has died, and then you resurrect minion A, and if it dies again, you can bring back minion A again. But if that resurrected A is alive on the board again, there should be nothing in your graveyard or whatever, your resurrect pool, whatever you want to call it. It should be empty. Like, if you played Psychopomp, then it shouldn't bring anything back because nothing's dead. So that's kind of like, I guess I think of like resurrecting as like, I have minion zombies in my head. And I'm like, you think of like Walking Dead, when one person dies on Walking Dead, they become one zombie. There aren't like 18 zombies, insert name here because I don't want to give spoilers to anybody, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
you're basically
it's a
asking,
1-for-1 relationship.
You're asking for a sort of, you wanted like an exile, because in Magic that there's a very big difference between send to the graveyard and exile card.
Okay.
Because like exile, it's
so
like,
yeah,
it's gone.
Maybe I'm using like the wrong like terminology because Magic is not my jam, so I don't know all the like card game terms. Like Hearthstone's my thing, but basically like I want like a 1-to-1 relationship. Like, something has to die to be in the group of things that can be brought back. And if it's been brought back, you can't get extra copies of that thing. Like, it's like it's emptying your pool
now,
as you're bringing things back and then refilling it again. Like, if that resurrected minion dies, then it can go back into the group of stuff that can be resurrected again. But while it is existing on the board, it shouldn't be like a copy of it shouldn't be able to be made.
It's
okay.
My Magic knowledge is pretty much very strictly like located between 2014 and like 2016, and if it happened before that or after that, I'm really unaware of it. But that's basically how resurrect mechanics work in Magic, as far as I understand it. Because like to bring something back from the graveyard, it has to be in the graveyard in the first place, which is basically how it works right now in Hearthstone. If nothing died, you're not resing anything.
Right.
But in Hearthstone, once something dies, now you can res it. You can just res it in perpetuity. In Magic, you are literally taking that physical card that is in a location on your board that is known as the graveyard and putting it back on the board. It is no longer in the graveyard. You can't res that particular creature back.
Right, because you need the physical card.
Yeah. And there are other effects and whatnot, the exile cards, and they don't go into the graveyard. They're gone. They're like obliterated from existence, essentially.
Which is kind of like what we currently do with, say, like a polymorph, I guess, or with Reno's poof.
Yeah, Reno's poof is really interesting.
Because maybe that's what we need more of. Maybe we need to be able to poof things. more so than just in one class with one card.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting a little bit into war on priest territory, which I'm a little uncomfortable with because I'm farming them right now. Oh, I'm farming priest. I'm so bored, but I love wins, Joss. I love wins. I haven't lost to a priest all week. It's been great. And I saw a lot of priests.
Well, yeah, and I don't necessarily want to, priest is obviously the one that is the worst, maybe the only one that's doing res things right now.
Also, I think Warlock should be able to do res things because of how demons and the Twisting Nether works in Warcraft lore.
Yeah, no, I'm completely on board with that. And so maybe and again, this is potentially getting away from what they want to do with like class identity stuff. And I don't want to target priest very specifically. It's more like if I had to think of one mechanic that never made sense, resurrect is the thing that is just never really jived with the way my brain works, like my internal logic. Obviously I know how it works in Hearthstone, but it's just never kind of made sense to me. So, I mean, I don't particularly want to point a finger at priest. And I think it's kind of a result of us also talking about healing and lifesteal. Because even though that happens on neutral cards, obviously priest has a lot more of that ability. So I don't want it to come off as me saying like Gurarg priest. I don't mind priest. But I know a lot of people not huge fans right now just because of like the length of games and the way that they don't necessarily have a win condition. Like their win condition is just like, I hope you get bored and concede because I'm just never going to die. Like past a certain point in the game, you just aren't going to kill me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because my gut reaction when we were talking, when Brenton asked the question, like, what would you remove? My first thought was, I would rather add res to Warlock. Like, I'd rather add a mechanic to another class that I feel like.
Well, that was this question too.
Should have it. Or, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I missed that.
It was a takeaway, and what would you add?
Gotcha,
so I'm saying, like, I would add some sort of meaningful graveyard / I would take out or change the way res works. Like, I feel like that's my answer, and it kind of smooshes the questions together.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, so if you were to add something, it would be res to Warlock.
Also, I don't know why I'm trying not to be mean to priest, but I'm clearly fine being mean to warrior. Be like, get their armor generation out of here. Gone. Out of here. God,
so then if you're taking armor generation away from warrior, do you also want to take it away from druid? Like
do they need
blue
it?
Armor.
Do they really need it right now?
Well, I mean, it depends if you play wild or not, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, totally. No, armor generation has historically been one of my, outside of like Yogg-Saron effects, like one of the things that just is a big pet peeve of mine, and I find unexciting. Because it just becomes an impenetrable barrier at some point, in its worst forms in the past. They've been a lot better. I
agree too.
Yeah,
in general, it's gotten lesser. You can still do it, but you're not seeing like 4-digit armor counts, which were just obscene.
Yeah. So, but
even Shutterwalk Shaman could do it at one point. Disgusting.
You're right. They could. So anyways, that's my answer. Thanks for the questions, Brenton and Hidden Jester. Keep them coming, everybody. tacpodcast@gmail.com.